There are many unknowns about 21 Capital. This is the new company by Tether, Jack Mallers, SoftBank. Their main goal is to acquire Bitcoin. We know that they're starting with 42,000, but there are many things that could happen that could either derail this or that are maybe concerning, or maybe that we just need to know about before making any sort of big investment into this. I'm going to go through all of the unknowns I could think of. I crowdsourced the some of the questions and some of the concerns through people asking them on Twitter, through my comment section and beyond. And I'm going to try to answer as many as I can and just try to field as many as I can, and so that we can get answers to the potential problems that might be on the horizon with this company. My name is Forrest Hoddle. I'm a Bitcoin educator and coach, and you can book me for a one-on-one if you need help with Bitcoin security, best practices, have any Bitcoin questions, and the link for that is in the description. I think the first thing we should get into here with the unknowns is, will this SPAC even go through? So this company is doing a merger with a blank check company, a SPAC, a special purpose acquisition company, and will merge and become the 21 Capital company with all of its goals and future prospects and business plan. But until then, there could be some things that go wrong. There have been SPACs in the past that haven't happened because of they haven't hit the regulatory hurdles. They haven't done some of the stuff that they need to do. So if this SPAC didn't happen, what would happen is it would trade down again to roughly around its initial price, because all it is now is, again, a blank check company. So that would be around $10. Currently, they're trading at $30 plus. So that's what would happen if that didn't happen. So there could be some other nuance within there. It's not just does it happen or does it not happen. There could be delays or rejections by the SEC, which could impact the launch. Now, again, these are all probabilistic. You just have to look at this as, is this possible and how likely is this to happen? I think it's very likely that this goes through, that there isn't any issues. But these are, this is a video about the unknowns, right? And so all of these unknowns have certain percentages of likelihood, and it's on us as people that look into it to really just figure out what we would give that percentage of likelihood. So I give it a very high percentage that there won't be any issues. And if there are issues, they're going to be very minor, like slight changes need to happen. Now, I will say there has been scrutiny in the past by the SEC around sort of crypto stuff. The other thing here is Tether has had some issues with the US and therefore have gone offshore, and then now they're coming back in through this other vehicle. But if we look at the company that is really spearheading the SPAC part of this, it's Cantor Fitzgerald, and the CEO who had to step down from Cantor Fitzgerald stepped in to the position of the Secretary of Commerce. That's Howard Lutnick, and now his son is running this SPAC, Brandon Lutnick, I believe. And so right there's a lot of synergy between this company, the crypto-friendly administration, the kind of the overlapping of now political figures and business figures. And I think all of that meshes towards this happening and the likelihood of it going really, really well. The other thing here is the unknown is really just what it deserves to be priced at. I think if you look at its chart, its trading chart, pre-SPAC right now is the only information we have. It's all over the place. It's really, really volatile. There's huge spreads, low liquidity, all sorts of stuff. It's just moving like crazy. And that's because we are unsure, we are unknown of what to price this at. What kind of multiple to its Bitcoin holdings should it have? How fast will it grow its Bitcoin holdings? How will it do that? And what does it deserve to be priced at? This is the biggest question, and everything else will go into that pricing, right? Price is a representation of so much other information, and all that information is risk. But again, we just don't know what to price this thing at. Another unknown that I've come up with here is how much more investment could Tether or SoftBank put into this? Do they have the ability to, if you know, this SPAC goes through, we're talking about XXI now, if they issue a bunch of shares into the market and use that cash that they generate by selling new equity, if they use that cash to buy Bitcoin, who are they selling that equity to? Is it possible that Tether could be a buyer of that? Is it possible that SoftBank could be a buyer of that, increasing their position relative to the other holders, even with the dilution happening? That's a possibility, or at least keeping it even or something like that, right? Another unknown here is the CEO's time is going to be split now between Strike and 21 Capital. Jack Mallers is the current CEO of Strike, which is a Bitcoin exchange and Lightning provider. They have they position themselves with the Lightning Network, and they sell Bitcoin to people, and they've been a very profitable business. And this isn't too uncommon for CEOs to have multiple CEO positions. I talked about this on the live stream on Maple Bitcoin, but the CEO's job is to be partially a public spokesperson and partially to put out very large fires or to make very large overarching decisions. And a lot of the actual boots on the ground work is done by people underneath that. They do have to be there to make the decisions and all of this and that, but a lot of that doesn't require them to have a punch card and punch in at 9 and leave at 5. They're going to be there when they need to be there, and they can split up their time because they have flexibility within being the CEO of each company, and therefore can kind of delegate or do as much as they need to. Now, again, this kind of goes into, we don't know a lot about the employees in general, right? So we're just talking about the CEO here, who is really important, and part of why you would bet on a company is you're betting on the sort of the person that actually is leading that company. But we don't know how many employees this company is going to have. We don't know what the burn rate is going to be, what kind of compensation is going to happen to the employees, the insiders, the executives. And also beyond that, we don't know what they're going to initially focus on as far as a business beyond just acquiring Bitcoin. In their SEC filings, they actually have their business model, and it shows a few different things that they plan to do. So they plan to acquire Bitcoin, actively manage Bitcoin holdings, issue debt and equity securities. So they're going to need a team that buys Bitcoin, holds it, figures out the best way to do that, maybe hires that out to a third party, maybe Cantor Fitzgerald. I know they hold some Bitcoin for Tesla, I believe, or SpaceX. And then they're going to need a financial team that knows how to set up when to sell equities into the market if they're doing ATM, or how to finance debt, how to partner with banks for that, and all of this. And then are they going to have to hire out a team as well to create modular educational content, branded video media, act as a go-to content partner for major conferences, fintech institutions, and Web3 firms? And this is almost like moving in this direction, so it looks like BTC acquisition is their first priority, and but then it kind of continues down this range. So will they build out this team first, and then how much are they going to pay and build this secondary business that is Bitcoin focused and could in the future provide returns either in Bitcoin or fiat that gets turned into Bitcoin? But at first, building a business is not profitable. There's a lot of startup cost. So how much of the issue of debt and equity is going towards acquiring Bitcoin, and how much of it is actually going towards building these businesses on top of this company, right? And Bitcoin related financial and advisory services, offering Bitcoin related debt and equity structured products, Bitcoin related lending, all of that takes money, time, energy to set up, and doesn't return immediate value back to the people that created it. Now, over the long term, of course, they're going to hopefully create a profitable business from each one of these endeavors, but there could be all sorts of missteps along the way. There could be all sorts of problems setting these up, or maybe it could be costly. There could be they could run into issues where it ends up not being a good use of funds, and they're in the startup phase. Now, I'm sure they wouldn't have any problem acquiring more capital. They have huge pockets behind them, with SoftBank and Tether being majority shareholders. But this is something to consider, is what direction do they go in initially when building this company? And on top of there too, I think one unknown is, what do they mean by Bitcoin lending? Do they mean that their 42,000 Bitcoin they have, they're going to lend those out to people and earn some sort of income from doing that? Does it mean they're going to facilitate Bitcoin lending and borrowing and help borrowers and lenders, people who want to borrow Bitcoin and lend fiat and vice versa? Are they going to link those people up like a service like Ledin does? Are they going to facilitate that with other banks? Are they, how are they going, what does that mean, right? This video is all about unknowns. We can speculate on what they mean by Bitcoin lending, but they sure don't have very much information about it yet. Another unknown here is what kind of ETFs these are going to be included into this stock. There's an ETF out there, I believe it's BMAX, off the top of my head, it's BMAX, that holds Bitcoin treasury companies with over 1,000 Bitcoin in their balance, and they weight, it's a weighted depending on how much Bitcoin they hold. So this company is going to start out really high in the weighting, either second or third within the weighting, and that will be a lot of demand for those shares and potential passive flows depending on how big that index becomes, that ETF becomes. There's also another one out there for buying bonds, convertible bonds of Bitcoin treasury companies. So there might be a bid for that side and allow them to have more demand for those, which means allowing for more issuance of that and more efficient issuance of that, and the equity through the BMAX as well. The other question here, which I have touched on, but how will the Bitcoin be held? Will it be held by someone like Cantor Fitzgerald or a company like Cantor Fitzgerald? Will it be held by Coinbase Prime? Will it be Fidelity? Will they hold it themselves? And of course, with that as well is the potential unknown of proof of reserves. Jack Mallers did say that they are going to have proof of reserves, so you could check that off as known. However, how are they going to do that? Is it really, is it just a wallet that has that? Or, do they actually have the ability to sign on that, to create a signature? Proof of reserves is one thing. Maybe proof that it's your reserves is maybe a different thing, but proof of reserves is better than nothing else, and gives them, in my opinion, a slight competitive advantage potentially over some other Bitcoin treasury companies out there that do not show proof of reserves. I know Metaplanet does. The others seem to not. Another unknown, this is speculation. There's been people talking about, well, this is a way for Strike to become public, Jack Mallers' other company, through a merger and acquisition. So this company, 21 Capital, could go out and actually buy Strike. Now, what's very interesting about that is then there would be one CEO for one company, right? And it would just have this partner company. It would be kind of like a holding acquisition company. And then underneath it, they would have Strike as a company that is part of their public company now. So I think what is interesting about this is how much it would cost. Would that be something that would be smart to do? So I did some calculations about what it would cost potentially to buy a company like Strike. I went off some metrics and numbers that were given out by Jack Mallers. Strike is a private company, so they don't actually have to release any of this information to the public, but he has stated, he's reported that over 6 billion in payment volume in 2024, 600% year-over-year growth, and 85% gross profit margins. So a very, very profitable company, and in fact growing faster than Bitcoin itself. So this would be the type of acquisition that would make sense. Now there's going to be a premium for an acquisition like this, even with the CEO being of both the same companies, because there's other people involved with acquiring a company, not just the CEO. There's all the investors and board members and things like that. So kind of estimating the value of Strike over price to sales compared to other sort of fintech type companies or crypto companies. Price to sales, I did price to earnings, and I did discounted cash flows. And I combined all those, which gives us a really big range of projected valuations for this company, but with a 30% acquisition premium, the range is sort of the midpoint of the range would be $3.9 to $6.5 billion. I mean, it went all the way from 2.3 to 18.7 billion. So it really depends on how everybody's valuating things and all of that. So let's say it cost them $6 billion, right? 5 or 6 billion to buy Strike. Well, they actually, I mean, where's that cash coming from? Would it be like they're buying it with stock? Right now they're valued at 12 billion, the company, 21. So would they issue stock and give that again to the owners and the investors of Strike to acquire it? Would they pay cash? How would they raise that cash? There's a lot of unknowns here. And I don't think it's as easy as people think it is. A lot of people online just think, oh, he's the CEO of both. They're both Bitcoin things. He could have this Bitcoin business as well as acquiring Bitcoin with the strategy. It makes sense that they just acquire Strike. It's not really just about acquiring Strike. It's a roughly around $6 billion company. That's nothing. That's not nothing, right? It is possible, and it is possible that is a strategy they do. But again, that's just an unknown. Just another unknown in this wonderful company of 21. A big unknown here that, again, I've touched on, but how fast will they be able to acquire Bitcoin? What will their Bitcoin yield be? How sustainable will their Bitcoin yield be? Will they be able to grow faster than strategy did? Will they be able to grow faster than strategy already does? Will they be able to outperform Bitcoin? I mean, there's so many questions. The more you look into this, the more questions there are, and it's really going to take time, more so than current analysis. It's going to take time and releasing of information because we do not have the information yet to really do apt analysis and projections into the future on this company. A lot of this is just speculative, and I think I wanted to make this video to just pose some questions in all of your minds so that when you look at this, you recognize and realize that you don't know really what you're buying yet. You're speculating, you're buying into essentially a startup with a plan. Yeah, they have some Bitcoin on their balance sheet. That's great, but that's comparable. I mean, in value, it could be comparable to cash. Now, I think Bitcoin's much better to hold than fiat. So I would value a startup that has Bitcoin on its balance sheet above a company that holds just cash, but you could directly compare those two things. And the idea they have is really great. The team they have is great. The potential ability for them to do that, there's a high likelihood of them succeeding. They seem to have gotten a lot of retail interest already, potentially institutional interest as well. And we will see. We really need to wait for more and more information. And I have really been enjoying making these videos and doing these deep dives and asking these questions and finding the questions to ask myself. And while I look into this, so I will continue to do so. That will continue to be on this channel. I'd love to hear any other unknowns that I've missed. I'm sure there's many. And you can do that on the comment section on YouTube, of course. Now, if you guys want to get some Bitcoin, I would recommend checking out Bitcoin Well. If you use my link in the description, you'll get some free Bitcoin on sign up. They're a non-custodial exchange, which means when you send them dollars, they send you Bitcoin directly. And they have non-KYC options available for Canadians. They are available in the States as well, the company. I would recommend checking out Stampseed if you want to preserve your seed phrase for future generations, and use my code BTC not crypto 15 for 15% off of a titanium seed plate stamping kit. Best way to preserve your seed phrase, in my opinion. And if you need a hardware wallet, you can get 5% off of the Bitbox using my code in the description. It's a decent hardware wallet. It works great for your Bitcoin. And there are others out there, but this is the one I have a 5% discount on. So that's why I am telling you about it. But there's all sorts of good hardware wallets out there, not just the Bitbox, in my opinion. All right. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for watching. Ask your questions. We'll see you on the next episode of Bitcoin, Not Crypto.